thing that Leeds United are consistently accused of is staying in a transfer race for too long, for picking out a target and wanting to just commit to it and increase the bids and increase the bids and increase the bids, and ultimately end up a little bit lost whether they end up making the move for far more money than they wanted to in the first place, or not making the move at all. However, Leeds United seem to be ending this pattern, which could be genuinely quite interesting to see how this one goes, because we've made a little bit of an ultimatum to Southampton. In this video, I'll talk through what that ultimatum is, what it means for Leeds United and transfer strategy and all that kind of stuff, and ultimately what potential alternatives we might consider for Shea Charles. But before all of that, I'd hugely appreciate if you could subscribe to the channel. Button's right down here. About 54% of you aren't subscribed, which is a little bit of a shame, but it's really easy to do. Thank you very much. And I apologise for not doing a video or anything yesterday. It's because I was on a long walk, then watching the Odyssey. You can tell I was on a long walk because I got sunburned. So that's not bad lighting, that's just what my face is like at the moment. It was quite bad. We walked for like 3 hours longer than we expected without sun cream, which was a bad idea. But anyway, diving into it. Leeds United have reportedly made their final bid for Shea Charles to Southampton and made it very, 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 very clear to Southampton that that is the last bid that Leeds United will make. Word is that it's about £24 million, which makes a lot of sense because we've heard sort of gradually increasing sort of sums of money that we've reportedly put forward to Southampton, and 24 seems to be the top of those, which makes sense if we're calling it a final bid. And it's effectively a little bit of a take it or leave it situation, which I think is a little bit of a power move from Leeds United. And while Shea Charles is incredibly promising, he is a homegrown player that would add to that specific quota. He's a very young footballer. He's got an incredibly high ceiling. All of these increase his value, but they don't increase his value to a point where you are paying too much money for him. If you've got an idea of how much a footballer is worth, you don't want to go beyond that, because you sort of give away your negotiating position in that conversation and your negotiating position in future conversations, because every single club will just go, these guys are really, really bad at buying players. How about we just kind of keep stringing them along a little bit? Now, what this means for the Shea Charles deal is a little bit complicated, because up to this point, as far as we've heard, we are the club that is throwing bids in for Shea Charles. We're the club that keeps having a go and keeps going, well, how about a little bit more money? How about we restructure the deal? How about we change things up a little bit? And hopefully that makes things a little bit nicer for Southampton. That has been a fairly consistent pattern for a very, very long time, and that pattern has now changed because we've clearly set our ceiling out, which is completely fine. I'm sort of a big fan of the fact that we've done that, at the same time as Fulham seem to have reared their head in the conversation. Now, Fulham having a little bit of an interest is an interesting thing to consider. First of all, they could have a very, very genuine interest. They could want to sign him and think that he is also the future, but think that he's the future in a more significant way than Leeds United. They might need a little bit more in defensive midfield. We know that they need more in attack, but that isn't really covered by Shea Charles. So it would make sense for them to potentially want to sign him, because they are in a position where they can quite feasibly sign younger players, develop them, then sell them all. Brilliant. I like the thinking. However, there is also a chance that the Fulham conversation is equally agent talk, because we found out about the Fulham interest a little bit before we found out that Leeds had submitted their final bid and just said, look, this is on the table, take it or leave it. Which makes me think that towards the time that the Fulham thing was sort of discussed, there was a little bit of a word going around that Leeds United were looking to make another bid, and Leeds United were looking to get this move done. And Leeds United would continue the pursuit, which obviously Southampton will want a little bit more money from the situation. The agent very clearly wants a move, and if Fulham have sniffed around at any point within the process, then you are technically accurate in saying Fulham have been in talks to sign Shea Charles, which is roughly the line that came out, which kind of makes sense. They have been in talks, which if you just ask the agent, would you be interested in coming to Fulham, we're not necessarily following it, you've been in talks, you've shown an interest. There is an argument that that news about Fulham came out prior to Leeds United making that offer, or maybe after Leeds United making that offer, to say, look, Leeds, you might want to up it a little bit because things are going to get very, very competitive. Things will not be easy for you. This isn't a one-horse race anymore. I've opened the stable door, and here comes Fulham. But thankfully, Leeds United seem to have not responded to that. Thankfully, the transfer team have looked at that situation and gone, cool, but that doesn't affect us. We know how much we think he's worth. We know what we think his ceiling is, and we know what our ceiling is for the amount of money we are willing to spend on him. Rumour is now that Southampton are valuing him at £30 million. That is the price that they have set, and they will not sell him if they don't reach that price. Which, all power to them. Fair enough. They are able to do so. I wish that when we got relegated a couple of seasons back, we were able to do the same. However, a lot of clauses meant that a lot of players went, which wasn't the most comfortable of positions. But Shea Charles doesn't have that issue, so Southampton are able to say 30 million quid or he doesn't move. I'm sort of proud of Leeds in this situation, of saying that's where the ceiling is, it isn't going to change. Because if Southampton really want the money and they really want to rebuild the squad in other places, because they're going to sell a lot of players this summer, that 20 odd million quid could be very, very beneficial for them. It could get a couple of very, very high standard championship wingers. It could replace Shea Charles with 2 more players that can fill his role and make sure that you've got a little bit more injury depth. It is a significant sum of money for Leeds United to be paying for Shea Charles when he's got a single year left on his contract. So I have a little bit of a feeling that Southampton needed to be tested. And that's what this does. The idea that we are saying, look, you take that or you leave it, and if you don't want the money, fine. But if you need money and you need a sale, make it happen. Because at the same time, Fulham will know that the amount of money that we've put down is about £24 million. They can similarly go, right, 24.5. Either you want it or you don't. And Southampton are stuck with this decision of selling for £30 million now, not even 30, 24 or 25 or whatever the specific numbers are, or let him go for free next year. Because I don't see a world in which Shea Charles, with 12 months left on his contract, goes, yeah, the best possible place for me right now is to remain at Southampton. Because Southampton, even if they come up, will be a team that struggles. Even if they get promoted next season, will be a team that are floating around the relegation places and potentially don't do anything with it. Their manager has just been charged with the Spygate stuff, which means that there could be even more punishments. He could be banned from management in the EFL, which would mean they'd have to sack him. Further than that, they could get further points deduction. It's not a good position for them to be in. Shea Charles is aware of this and will also be pushing for a move. Ultimately, I think our stance of don't move when you don't have to is backed up by the fact that we don't need to sign Shea Charles. He's sort of one of those shiny additions to the squad. He's one of those nice things to have, one of those potential profit makers, which would add to us. Absolutely no, there is no doubt, nothing that says that wouldn't be a good move. But at the same time, if we don't do it, no one's going to be complaining too much. If we don't do it, it's not like we need another defensive midfielder. Ultimately, all of the pressure is on Southampton right now, and they've invited it on themselves, and we've just added more to it. So hopefully, Leeds United end up securing Shea Charles, but if not, whatever. Southampton have made their bed, they'll have to lie in it, and we'll potentially see Shea Charles next summer, which would be quite nice. Anyway, I'm going to get my sunburnt limbs off to bed, so hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please pop a like on it, subscribe, become a channel member, all that fun kind of stuff. I'm going to leave that there. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all later. Toodaloo. But again, look, it's like a squashy. It's just a line. This feels so much nicer than this. Toodaloo.